Welcome to Good Questions. Today is Psalm chapter 17, King James Version. Hear the right, O Lord. Attend unto my cry. Give ear unto my prayer that goeth not out of feigned lips. Pause. How does the author know that he is in the right? Why is the author requesting that God play arbiter between two people? Why does the author not take the law into his own hands? Why does the author believe that God cares about the daily affairs of human beings? What does it mean to have feigned lips? Verse 2. Let my sentence come forth from thy presence. Let thine eyes beholden the things that are equal. Pause. In what context is the concept of equality used here in verse 2? Does God have eyes in the way that humans have eyes? Verse 3. Thou hast proved mine heart. Thou hast visited me in the night. Thou hast tried me, and shalt find nothing. I am purposed that my mouth shall not transgress. Pause. What does it mean that one's mouth shall not transgress? What was the author's experience when he said that God had visited him in the night and had tested him? Verse 4. Concerning the works of men, by the word of thy lips, I have kept me from the paths of the destroyer. Pause. Who is the destroyer? Is this a type of person or a specific individual? What are the paths of the destroyer? And why does the author tie this in to the works of men? Does the author refer to his own works or the works of others? Verse 5. Hold up my goings in thy paths, that my footsteps slip not. Pause. Why does the author use an imagery similar to slipping on presumably mud or climbing rocky terrain? What kind of geography did the author live near or around? Verse 6. I have called upon thee, for thou wilt hear me, O God. Incline thine ear unto me, and hear my speech. Pause. Let me rewind back to verse 5. This is perhaps something small, but I know that King David, the warrior king, wrote or composed many psalms, and if he composed this Psalm 17 when he wrote of footsteps slipping, was he remembering times in battle, perhaps on a rainy day, in the mud when he needed strength and his feet began to slip while in the midst of combat? What would that experience feel like? Back to verse 6. I have called upon thee, for thou wilt hear me, O God. Incline thine ear unto me, and hear my speech. How does the author know that God will hear when he calls? Verse 7. Shew thy marvelous shew thy marvelous loving kindness, O thou that savest by thy right hand them which put their trust in thee from those that rise up against them. Why is the right hand of God referenced? And what is the expectation for those that believe in God to save them? Does that mean they always win? If salvation comes by the right hand of God, what does the left hand of God figuratively represent? Verse 8. Keep me as the apple of the eye. Hide me under the shadow of thy wings. Pause. Why do we use the word apple of the eye, or the term apple of the eye in English? If this were more literally translated, would it be something else, in the original Hebrew? Uh, what actual word would be used there? Would it also refer to fruit, such as a grape seed or something like that, or something else? Why is the imagery of the shadow of the wings used? Is the author thinking of an eagle or a bird of prey protecting the young in the nest, or something less impressive, such as a prey bird or a domestic variety? Verse 9. From the wicked that oppress me, from my deadly enemies who compass me about. Pause. Who are these wicked, and how were they able to surround the author? Does this mean the author is a political figure? And if so, are these enemies also from his own group? Are they even from his own kin? Verse 10. They are enclosed in their own fat. With their mouth they speak proudly. Pause. I do not recall this verse, even though I presumably have read it at some point in my life. But I do not recall this, except I do recall a reference where Ehud, the left-handed judge of Israel, slew a king. I think he was the king of Moab, perhaps, I don't recall. And he was also fat. And when the short sword was plunged into the belly, it was effectively concealed, and the amount of blood lost was reduced because the fat formed a kind of a seal after the blade had penetrated the belly. Um, the evil king still passed away, but I guess um, I'm curious as to why the author ties pride or excessive pride and proud words the into fatness. And I'm curious, are only rich and wealthy people able to be uh, fat in the author's eyes in his time? Um, I'm not trying to go further than I should, but at some point I have to ask, what exactly is the author trying to do here uh, in the context of his own culture and his own time and his own generation? And does the author, since he presumably lived after the time of the judges, because the time of the kings came after the time of the judges, is the psalmist referring to the incident with Ehud, or thinking about him, or is the author thinking about a particular individual, an enemy that he knows that is very proud and that is wealthy? Is he thinking about the former husband of, I think, Abigail, who he eventually married because her wicked husband was very proud and wealthy? Was he that individual of which we speak here? Verse 11. They have now compassed us in our steps. They have set their eyes bowing down to the earth. Pause. I understand the concept of an army compassing or surrounding like a compass would as a circle David and his men, if this is David, or another uh, individual, a psalmist who had experience in the military, which there could be others. Um, but when it says they have set their eyes bowing down to the earth, is this a reference to an evil spirit, an evil angel? Is this a reference to the Edomites, who were known for their mountain paradise, in a sense, or at least their mountain refuge, and they would also be able to look down upon the earth and see their often prey, as in the Israelites, coming, ahead of time? Or do they have some kind of magic, these enemies, to where they can use trained falconry to spy? Verse 12. Like as a lion that is greedy of his prey, and as it were a young lion lurking in secret places. Pause. Going back to verse 11, when it says, they have now compassed us in our steps, and they have set their eyes bowing down to the earth, is the first half of that verse referencing enemy foot soldiers, and the second half referencing a different perspective entirely? Are those the vultures or carrion birds anticipating that the author is going to die? Now back to verse 12. Like as a lion that is greedy of his prey, and as it were a young lion lurking in secret places. So, pause. A young lion, how big, what size would a young lion have to be a real threat to a man? And in what secret places could that young lion actually hide? Could they hide in a village? Could they hide behind a small tree or a bush or shrub? Where would the author's enemies have hid that was unexpected? Verse 13. Arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. Pause. So the author wants God to disappoint the wicked. And when the author says, which is thy sword, is the author suggesting that wicked people are the left hand or punishment of God? Does God use wicked people to punish other wicked people? Are the wicked referenced as the sword of God or enemy armies? Or is this something else? Verse 14. From men which are thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world, which have their portion in this life, and whose belly thou fillest with thy hid treasure. They are full of children, and leave the rest of their substance to their babes. Pause. Why does God seem to prefer the wicked in this lifetime, according to the author, giving them children, plenty of food, and effectively an inheritance and a legacy in this world? What does that say about worldly success? Is it possible to have no food, no children, no land, and still be considered a good person in God's eyes and thus in one's own soul? Verse 15. As for me, I will behold thy face in righteousness. I shall be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. Pause. When will the author behold God's face? And what does it mean to behold God's face in righteousness? Does that mean God is proud of him? When the author says, I shall be satisfied when I awake, does that mean the author is taking a nap? Or that the author is looking forward to the day after he passes away and he awakens at some point to see God smiling at him? Does the author really believe that he has no true wealth or inheritance in this world? What are your good questions? Share your thoughts. Feel free to like and subscribe. Have a great day and Merry Christmas.